That's smart. They loved it. The official account commented on the TikTok video, writing, "The Halloween decorations are getting really realistic this year."
Didn't faze him at all. I'm still cracking up. It was a couple of years ago. One of my neighbors was walking their dogs, and it was when all the Halloween decorations were out, and one of our neighbors had one of those skeletons of a dog.
Yeah.
And the dog was just really freaked out. I figured, what is this that I'm looking at? This one doesn't mind a bit.
Very different. I'd never heard of a newfie poo before.
Either. I love it, though.
New every day.
Yeah, well, now check this one out. A truck held up traffic on a 6-lane bridge in Australia last week while trying to make a U-turn. Video shows the truck struggling to make that turn, which was apparently because it was too tall to pass down under the bridge. The video was shared on TikTok, and while this was probably frustrating, one commenter had a good perspective. They said the trucker did eventually make that turn, but held up traffic for quite a while, but the alternative would have been much worse. The truck could have kept going, hit the bridge, and forced a closure for days or weeks. Man.
I could never be a truck driver because I would be doing all sorts of wrong things.
We'd be showing videos of your driving every day.
Turning.
Yeah.
I get it.
Oh, gosh. Okay, Jonathan, let's do a U-turn here and talk about this weather. How is it looking for the rest of the week?
The weather has done a U-turn on us. In contrast to last week, clouds and showers are a main factor in the forecast for the next 3 days to come. A bit of a break tomorrow, but the winds will be back tomorrow. And then again, Wednesday, joining in with another round of rain. Things start to improve as we get closer to the holiday period. The clouds still around for Thursday. Temperatures still some 15 degrees below average. Then we get to the weekend, and that's when 60s return, but it will be chilly and bright. Ladies.
A cold Halloween. All right, Jonathan, thank you. And thanks for joining us for Good Day Atlanta. Sherry is coming up next.
Stay connected to Fox 5 around the clock on our website, fox5atlanta.com, on Fox Local, and we're also on the Fox 5 Radio 1 network at 107.9 HD2 FM.
And we are all over social media. You can find us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And please stick around for Fox 5 News at noon. That starts in 1 hour. I'll be there. And then you can stick around for Portia at 1. Have a marvelous Monday, everyone, despite the rain. We'll see you tomorrow. Same time, same place, same couch.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for being with us on this Monday. I'm Elise Edie, and it's good to have you streaming with us this morning. Quite a few stories that we're following today, including the weather as well. You're waking up to rain. We can expect that for much of the day. Also, Hurricane Melissa has now strengthened to a Category 5, which is really not good news for Jamaica. So our meteorologist, Jonathan Stacy, will fill us in on what we can expect to that. But let's get to something big that happened over the weekend. 3 teens were shot near Clark Atlanta University. This happened late Saturday night on Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, right outside of the university's music building. So we're talking 3 teens here, 17, 18, and 19 years old. They were taken to Grady. We're told they are expected to survive. So that being some good news that's coming from all of this. But we have our Kim Leffler on top of the story this morning, joining us with what happened and with what we know about the victims and possible suspects and motives in this case. So Kim, good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, still not a lot of additional information about the shooting, but as you mentioned, 3 teens did get injured here on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. This is right between Mercedes-Benz Stadium and the main Clark Atlanta University campus. Now, here is what we know. Atlanta police officers got called here at around 11:52 Saturday night. When they arrived, they found a 19-year-old male, 18-year-old male, and 17-year-old male who all had gunshot wounds. They were all taken to the hospital and are expected to be okay. Now, police say the 3 teens were standing outside here when they heard gunfire and got injured. Right now, there's no information on a suspect or who had fired these weapons. We do know that Clark Atlanta University had homecoming events scheduled on Saturday, but based on information online, those events did wrap up a little bit earlier in the night, so it's unclear if these 3 teens were here for those events. We have reached out to Clark Atlanta University for more information, and And of course, as soon as we hear from them, we'll bring that right to you. But again, we're still working to learn more information about exactly what led up to all of this. Elise.
Yeah, and Kim, this is coming off of news, too, that we got over the weekend of a shooting that happened after a homecoming event at Howard University in D.C. So a few similarities, again, around the event that this was homecoming, multiple people injured, happening off campus. But the difference, I guess, here is that there was an immediate statement that was released from faculty at Howard, but we still haven't gotten that just yet from Clark Atlanta University. So any word on when that statement may come? Have they issued something this morning, Kim?
We have reached out to them this morning, and as of this hour, we have not yet heard back. But of course, as soon as we get that, we'll bring it right to you. But we have reached out to them for more.
All right, our Kim Leffler on top of the story for us this morning. Kim, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Well, turning now to Cherokee County, that's where an autopsy will be performed on a badly decomposed body of a woman. This was found in a home where deputies fatally shot a man. And what they're thinking right now is that body is believed to be the mother of the man killed. So a pretty wild case here. But our Mark Teichner has the latest from GBI headquarters.
Well, the woman's body, who was brought here to the GBI for an autopsy, was so badly decomposed that authorities have no idea when or how she died.
We are investigating her death. The GBI will be investigating the shooting of the son.
A mother and son are dead. The 26-year-old man killed by Cherokee County deputies. His mother found deceased inside their home. Just before 7 Saturday evening, deputies responded to the house on unincorporated Ackworth's Whisperwood Trail for a welfare check.
They were immediately met by someone outside that was armed who came after our deputies. They did defend themselves.
At least one deputy opened fire, shooting and killing the man. During the scuffle, a deputy was injured. He ended up being treated and released from the hospital.
After the shooting, they could smell an odor of decay coming from the home. They went inside and located a deceased female inside the home.
Investigators think the woman is the mother of the man killed by deputies. Her body was so badly decomposed, authorities aren't sure how or when she died.
Her body was taken to the GBI crime lab. We'll do an autopsy and we'll probably figure out more.
Never seen nothing like this.
Louis Villoria has lived in the quiet neighborhood for almost a decade. His wife heard the gunfire, leaving both of them shocked by what happened.
Seems like, now it's like a little more scary.
The names of the 26-year-old man who was killed by deputies, as well as his mother, have not yet been released because authorities say they have to notify next of kin who are located outside of the country. Reporting from GBI headquarters, I'm Mark Teichner, Fox 5 News.
Another big story, of course, that we're following. It's been about 4 weeks now of this government shutdown, now entering its 4th week. And while federal employees eventually will get back pay, we're told more than 1 million small business owners won't have that same thing extended to them. We're talking about federal contractors. So Rebecca Contreras, CBO of Avant-Garde, and former White House appointee, is joining us now with the cost of this shutdown for them. And it's a segment that's not often talked about and considered with all of this. So Rebecca, good morning, and thanks for being on with us today.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure being with you this morning.
Of course. All right, let's dive into this. So what makes the shutdown so devastating, you say, for federal contractors, that is, compared to federal employees?
Well, so first of all, I am one of millions of owners that work with the federal government. We have about 78,000 small businesses that work with the federal government. And that's not speaking into the larger businesses that have, larger size contracts, but there are a lot of small businesses like mine that are being detrimentally impacted by the shutdown. And the reason it's different is because, unlike the federal workers, at least we don't receive back pay for the work lost. So at Avant-Garde, my company alone, I have over 110 employees, 50% of which the projects are shut down, and they will never recover from the lost income and payroll in the tune of almost $500,000 this week if the government doesn't open back up. And this is income that is to the employees working for our team, not income lost to the business. So there are a couple of major factors here that I think are detrimental that just the general media is just not talking about, and that's why I am committed to raise awareness and sound the alarm that this is going to impact the heartbeat of America America, which is our small business community across the nation serving the federal government.
I mean, you're talking like real world consequences here. This is their paychecks, their families, their businesses that will be impacted by this. So, I mean, what are we talking here? We're thinking about it, 1 million of these contractors being impacted, right?
Right. So as of today, there's over 1 million employees that work as a federal contractor that are laid off, and that's just a sort of high level stat. We don't really, because everything has been moving so fast, we don't really have the true numbers, but we think that that's an underestimate. Keep in mind, Elise, it's not only the income that's lost to small business and employees working for a small business, but you also have over $170 million in loans from the SBA that are not going through the process. And in Texas alone, Texas small business, and these are people that are not working for the federal government. These are small businesses that are relying on small business loan programs. $88 million of that $178 million that's not going reviewed is Texas businesses alone, Texas businesses like mine. And every day that the government is shut down, programs like the SBA Small Business Loan Program is impacted. Employees like my employees and the million plus others are not receiving a paycheck, and that income can never be recovered.
Yeah, why do you think that they are being left out of the conversation? It's so interesting that you say that because they really haven't been mentioned much. In fact, you even call them the invisible victims of the shutdown. So why do you feel that they're being left out of the conversation?
I think as I grew up in government. I spent 15 years in government myself as a government employee, and I think because there are, over 2 million and a half federal workers that are not being paid, many of which are working but not being paid. I think that conversation has dominated the media. But in talking to my small business colleagues that are relying on paying their employees. And I can tell you for me and my small business partner and I have made a very deliberate decision. We had a very healthy cash flow. We grew this business to ensure that we could take care of our employees and make payroll. If the government doesn't open back up, that cash flow is obliterated. It's gone. And all of the hard work in starting and growing a very thriving small business will be out the window if members of Congress don't do their job and approve a federal budget. So it's a real dire impact, and I'm committed to sound the alarm and make sure that and the American people know these are everyday Americans working for small business to the tune of the millions of employees.
You're doing so much more, too, than just sounding the alarm, because I have to mention something your company is doing, which is fantastic, stepped in to help employees. So tell us a little bit more about this zero-interest bridge loan program that you created and how it's helping your employees.
Well, we heard from our employees that when they were going to the bank, they weren't able to get bank loans because the banks and the credit unions are telling them they're not guaranteed to get back pay, unlike the federal workers that will get back pay. They're not eligible for the back pay. And so, when we heard through our senior project managers that employees were struggling to pay their rent, to put food on the table, to take care of loved ones. We have single moms on our projects. One project in particular has a third single mom staffed on that project. Our heart of compassion really hit home for my partner and I, and we decided out of our own money to fund a Bridge Gap zero interest loan for employees that are impacted. And we've had over 50% of our staff impacted. And we last week was the first week we issued these loans once the government opens back up. So basically the employee is eligible to apply for the loan with no interest on it. We have issued our first payroll for that last Thursday. And then when the government opens back up and we're able to redeploy our team to support the projects, then we will spread out the payback over a cycle of about 4 months. So we're going to give them a graduated cycle to pay back that income. But we're hearing the stories, Elise, of our employees that are so grateful. I talked to an elderly, I would say senior citizen that's on our team last Thursday. She just, her husband lost his job 4 months ago and was laid off. She's the sole breadwinner. And then she took in her brother who had a stroke and she's caring for him. And she was so grateful thankful that we are able to give her that bridge gap loan. And she just really showed her commitment long-term to the company. And we just couldn't stand by and do nothing about this need. We had to respond as owners to ensure that our employees are well taken care of during this really tragic time.
Yeah, this is one of those things I know they're grateful, and this is something that they won't easily forget, that you stepped in to be able to do this for them. Finally, let me ask you this, Rebecca, before we let you go. What's your message of hope, or what do you hope that the takeaway is from all of this, from what you're saying to those policymakers who have it, within their authority to be able to make a change now and the next time we find ourselves in a government shutdown?
I would say that that this is not about politics. It's about the human impact. And if I've worked with politicians in my career, and I have, political friends on both sides of the aisle, given my long government tenure and my own work. But I will tell you, this is not about politics. This is about the people behind the paycheck, the human impact. And just if we just come together and work together to think about real solutions for everyday Americans that are suffering, I think we can get it done. And I would just admonish our members of Congress to work together for common sense solutions and get this done. The American people are better. They deserve it. And there's millions and millions of people impacted. And I hope that they do come to a quick resolution. And I'm an optimist. I'm a believer in this great country we call America. And I do hope and pray that a solution happens quickly for the good of people like us and small business communities that are being severely impacted.
Yeah, an important message today, talking about those 1 million contractors who find themselves in a really tough situation here amid the government shutdown. So Rebecca Contreras, CEO of Avant-Garde LLC, thank you so much for checking in with us here. We sure do appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the time.
Of course. All right, let's get you to something that's happening right now on the steps of the state capitol. This is the state leaders are sounding the alarm about the impact that this government shutdown is having on us here in Georgia. It's the Black Legislative Caucus who are having this press conference right now. Hank Johnson, Lucy McBath are there, along with Senator Nikki Merritt as well. So let's listen in to what they're saying there from the steps of the state capitol.
Until that happens, the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus will continue to advocate, educate, and connect Georgians with every resource available. And while the GLBC might not have all of the answers, we do care deeply about the impact these changes have on individuals and their families, and the overall economy of Georgia. Our communities deserve stability, security, and leadership that puts people first. And as the end of the month approaches, let's stand alongside one another, be responsive to our communities in solidarity, in service, and in shared purpose. Thank you. So now we are going to hear from our congressional members. We're going to start with Representative Hank Johnson, and then we'll hear from Representative Lucy McBath.
Thank you, Representative Merritt, and good morning, everyone. I'm Hank Johnson, representing Georgia's 4th Congressional District, which includes most of DeKalb and parts of Gwinnett counties. It's good to be here with the Legislative Black Caucus under the leadership of Representative Merritt. I thank you for the invitation to be here, and I'm thankful for your leadership in bringing us here, and I'm proud to stand with all of you all. But if I were being honest with you, I wish I didn't have to be here today. I wish I were in D.C. going about the people's business. I wish we were all going about our daily lives, but sadly, that is not the case. Today marks day 27 of the Republican federal government shutdown and Republican manufactured healthcare crisis. This is now the second longest federal government shutdown in U.S. history. No matter what Republicans say or how loudly they say it, Republicans are responsible for the mess we are in today. I want to remind my fellow Georgians and Americans that it is Republicans who control the United States House of Representatives. It's Republicans who control the United States Senate. And it is Republicans who control the White House. And by the way, it's also Republicans who control the 6-3 MAGA majority on the United States Supreme Court. For those who ask, well, how did we get here? Well, for starters, back on Tuesday, September 23rd, the people of Arizona's 7th congressional district came together in a special election to elect a new representative after their member had sadly succumbed to illness earlier that year, my late colleague Raul Grijalva. As Speaker Johnson had done many times over the course of the year, he swore in Republican members-elect immediately after their election. But the difference with Representative-elect Alalita Grijalva, who was elected with 70% of the vote, the only difference between she and those Republicans that he swore in were that she had already pledged to become the 218th signatory on the discharge petition to force the House of Representatives to vote on a resolution to release the Epstein files. Yes, you heard that correctly. The master manipulator and king of distractions in the White House is using the government shutdown to distract us once again from the truth. And the truth is that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files, and he would rather burn the country down than for it to be revealed the extent of his involvement with the most prolific child molester in the history of this nation. The other reason we are in this predicament, ladies and gentlemen, is that back in July, Republicans unilaterally passed what they call the big beautiful bill. We call it the big ugly bill. Yes. It had trillions of dollars worth of funding cuts to Medicaid and Medicare, and it also ended Obamacare subsidies that allowed Georgians to purchase affordable health insurance. And now Georgians have started receiving their premium notices for 2026 annual enrollment. And surprise, surprise, Republican policies have caused those health care premiums to double, those Obamacare health care premiums to double, and in some cases triple and quadruple in costs. For a president who pledged on day one to address the affordability crisis that working class Americans face, he's made life even worse. Democrats are only asking for a few things, and that is to pass a clean continuing resolution to reopen the government that pays all military service members and federal employees and contractors what they are owed, and work with us to bring back Obamacare tax credits and subsidies to prevent millions of Americans from losing their health insurance.
Yeah, I want to take a moment right here just to say, we heard some pretty explosive allegations. If you were just listening in to what this gentleman had to say, allegations about President Trump and his being found in the Epstein files, and just want to make sure we say that none of that has been proven. This is his opinion, and so of course felt it was very important to give that thought to what was just said right there. But if you'd like to catch the remainder of what's happening there at the Georgia State Capitol with the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus talking about the impact that the shutdown is having here in Georgia, we will be carrying that on our YouTube channel so you can continue to follow along with what's being said there. Again, some pretty explosive allegations coming out of this press conference. So that's a story that we will continue to be on top of. But want to switch gears and talk just a moment about updated guidance on SNAP benefits right here. Georgia officials receiving some updated guidance on what this will mean for the millions of folks here in Georgia Georgia who receive SNAP benefits. So let me get to this. They're saying that they've been notified by the Georgia Department of Human Services there was insufficient funds to cover the November SNAP benefits due to the ongoing government shutdown. Again, we find ourselves in the 4th week of this. They're saying initially that they thought that those cards would no longer work starting on November 1st, but now the information that they have is that funds that were put onto those cards prior to November 1st can still be used during the month of November. They're encouraging recipients, though, to plan ahead and to make sure that they shop for the items that they need in case the shutdown continues. So again, USDA suspending all November benefit allotments, but anything that's been issued before November 1st will still be accessible on those recipients' EBT cards. All right, still ahead for you here on Fox Local. If you've been sick of getting those robocalls, those scam texts, I know I have. They come in at all hours of the day and night. You're certainly not alone. So they're annoying, but they're also costing people in Georgia and all across the nation millions of dollars. So we're going to talk with an expert about that next. Welcome back, everyone. Okay, a new report is finding that Americans are getting about 2.5 billion scam calls, robocalls every single month. It's especially bad in Georgia, too. So it's showing up in our texts. They're annoying, but the bottom line here is they're also costing people a lot of money, folks who get scammed. So joining us this morning to explain what's behind the surge and how to protect yourself, we have Alex Quilici, CEO of UML. So, Alex, thank you so much for being on with us and sharing more about this. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me on.
Of course. Okay, so a new report is showing that robocalls are at a 6-year high, which is saying something. It's pretty incredible. So what is it that's driving this increase?
So we're seeing unwanted robocalls at the 6-year high, and two things are driving it. One is just out of control telemarketing. I'm sure all of you and your audience have gotten these debt relief calls of one form or another. Those have been going crazy. The other is that scam calls are continuing at a pretty steady pace. So between the two of them, we're getting a lot more robocalls than we want.
But hasn't there been like government crackdowns? I feel like we've had so many stories of there being, lists you can put yourselves on and just the government taking notice of the problem here. So why are we seeing the volume rise even more right now when you'd think it'd be going down due to all of that?
What we see is the biggest thing that makes a difference on the volume of these illegal and unwanted robocalls is enforcement actions. It's taking the carriers and the bad guys who are putting the calls on the carrier network, off the network. It's putting them in jail, it's suing them, it's getting them to stop making the calls. And there just hasn't been as much enforcement action over the last 6 to 12 months as there was prior. That's the single biggest thing that moves the needle and causes a drop in robocalls.
So what about AI? How are scammers harnessing this new technology that's everywhere to make these calls and texts more convincing, Alex?
There's a number of ways. One is really simple. They just use AI to make the text messages grammatically correct, good punctuation. They make sense. The English isn't all stilted. That's a very basic one. They've also gotten better at doing, emails to try to get you to call them back. And they even generate very nice sounding messages that they leave for you, like voicemails or bots that call you and start interacting with you. And they're just getting started. We expect to see more AI targeting coming up, where they use all the data that's out there in data breaches to basically convince you that they are who they say they are and target you based on that data.
So something in particular that I think is absolutely terrifying is voice cloning. So we keep hearing about that. So can you explain how that works and how we can spot that it's not someone real, that it is in fact a voice clone?
Sure. Voice cloning simply takes a sample of your voice and makes a voice that sounds like you. And then they can make calls, they can do various things to convince other people who know you that they're talking to you. So very easy to do. They can simply take your voicemail greeting. That's enough to make a pretty good sample of your voice and then call people. It's absolutely terrifying. Mostly it's been focused on celebrities, but it's starting to move toward individuals at this point.
So almost just as annoying, I think, Alex, and you tell me if you agree with this, as the calls that come in at all hours of the day are the text that seem to be coming in such incredible volume. So what makes those text scams so effective?
I think, one of the biggest ones that's out there is the one that talks about toll roads and you owe a payment. There's data out there now that they made $1 billion on about 50 million text messages they sent out over a year. And so people simply see the little link and say, oh yeah, I might have driven on a toll road. They click the button, give them their credit card. And once they have the credit card, they're off to the races. So the key thing for people to do is just take a beat, pause. When you see that text message, go, where should I go to find out about tolls? And go to the website. Don't just click on an incoming link on a text message or call a phone number back.
Some good advice there. Okay, something I was surprised to see in the report here is that Atlanta was one of the top cities for robocalls in September. So why is Atlanta such a hot spot?
So there's two reasons. One is it's in the South, and Southerners are polite and answer the phone at a higher rate than people in other parts of the country. The bad guys know that, so they're going to call more. The other is a lot of the robocalls are economically related. For example, debt relief. And Atlanta's economy might not be booming as much as some of the other places. There's more people that might need debt relief, and so they get a lot more of those calls. So those are at least two reasons that we've seen. Also, finally, if you're economically in trouble, that's when the scammers go after you. So you get the scam calls too.
So kind of a double whammy right there. So for the average person at home, Alex, what are the best steps to take or steps to block these calls and texts that are coming in?
So there's three things. The first is get an app like our app, Umail, or another app that can block calls and texts. They're not perfect, but they'll filter some out. The second thing to do is when you get a call, do some research. Don't just answer the phone if it's something you don't expect. Do some research and find out if it's real. And third, call back phone numbers. Don't just react to things that called you inbound. If you do those, you'll be in much better shape.
So looking at the big picture here, I mean, what can phone companies do and other companies to try to regulate, if anything, these calls and texts to maybe stop them at the source?
I think the biggest thing that we're going to see happen is it's going to change the economics of these calls. These calls and texts are super, super cheap to do. It's easy to get a lot of phone numbers and then make calls and texts from those phone numbers. I think what we're going to see is regulators move to make it more expensive to get a phone number and a little bit more expensive to make a call or send a text. It won't bother the average consumer, but for these folks that are blasting out millions of calls, it starts changing the game a bit.
Very important information, and just something you might have been wondering about. You know what I mean? Why you're receiving so many of these calls and texts. So it makes a lot of sense in the way that you put it for us this morning. Alex Quilici, CEO of Umail, thank you so much for the help today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, something else that we are following for you today, of course, Hurricane Melissa strengthened to a Category 5 storm, which is really bad news for Jamaica. So meteorologist Jonathan Stacey will join us right after this with more on what we can expect from the impact. Welcome back, everyone, and thanks for being with us on this Monday. It's a Monday that you're waking up to some rain, and you might have had that as you made your way in to work in All About Town. So meteorologist Jonathan Stacey is joining us now. This really is not the weather story today, though, is it?
It is sidestepped by a really major and potentially devastating hurricane that is developing just to the south of the island of Jamaica. But we are dealing with the problem that is at hand here at home, and that is the rain falling from the sky, something that we have not seen or felt or heard in quite some time. At this point, the majority of the wet weather is now to the east of the metro area. You can see here from the I-85 corridor all the way up 985, going out 20 is where you have the brunt of the heaviest showers. And those showers are going to continue to stick around for the next hour, hour and a half, and then things start to look and feel much better as we get into the afternoon and the evening hours. In terms of what we're looking at now across the Caribbean is a monster of a storm. Elise, when we were talking yesterday, not yesterday, 2 days ago, I kept telling you that we just didn't know where the storm was going. And generally during the middle of the week, the focus had been set on the island of Hispaniola. We were talking about Haiti specifically getting the brunt of the rainfall, the highest wind gusts hitting that island shared with the Dominican Republic. And then as the week grew on, the models really started to take a more of a westward bias. And that bias is, it really put Jamaica right in the bullseye, and that's what we're seeing. Now we're right on the 36 to 48 hour cusp of the greatest impacts. So let's check in on the latest advisory issued from the National Hurricane Center. Winds just enormous wind fill here. Look at this, 160 miles an hour, and it's moving along at 3 miles an hour. So the higher the top number is and the lower the bottom number is creates a worse situation. Okay, so anytime those numbers are going apart, there's not some type of mathematical or meteorological equation here. This is just kind of a human. If you see these numbers and the number on the bottom is really, really, really low or slow in this case, and you have a really high number up top, that means you have a massive storm, and that storm is crawling along. Obviously, the bigger something is, the slower it goes. It's also fed by some very warm, undisturbed waters. There has not been a storm in the Caribbean Sea at all this season. So the waters are what we would call unfettered. There's a trend here called upwelling, and that tends to dig up some of that cooler water, brings it to the top of the surface. We haven't had that happen yet. Well, this storm is going to create that, but it will be a little too late, especially for the island of Jamaica. And so with these extremely high winds, you're looking at a storm that is going to no doubt do some damage. So there has been the obvious preparation as you'd expect. There are now hurricane warnings in effect for the entire island of Jamaica, tropical storm warnings in effect for the Haitian portion of Hispaniola, and then those hurricane warnings now reach into eastern Cuba, and the threat will move into that area as we get into the middle of the week. So let's take a look at the latest track. This is not a good situation here, folks. I've seen a lot of storms, but this one is going to blow my mind and change the lives of many, the lives and the landscape. A Category 5 taking Jamaica in, taking the island on from the south and bisecting the island, really. This happens tomorrow. This time tomorrow, the storm will be making landfall, and then it moves back into the Caribbean Sea, that area between Cuba and Jamaica, as a Cat 3 storm. And so a Cat 3 storm is still a major hurricane, and then has a second landfall that will happen along the eastern side of Cuba before moving out into the Atlantic, but it will graze over the Turks and Caicos and the southern Bahamas before likely making its way up to the north and to the east and impacting Bermuda as a much weaker storm. Okay, so let's talk about the rainfall amounts here. Once again, we're setting our focus on the island of Jamaica here, and you can see that over almost 3 feet of rainfall expected in that area over the next 48-hour period, and then a ferocious wind maker. I think this model underscores just how rough the winds will be. Those tropical storm force winds reaching in tonight. By tomorrow morning, you have sustained winds up to 84 miles an hour. I think the winds will be much higher. That storm doesn't show any sign of weakening as it crosses over a relatively small island in contrast or in comparison to its size. Those waves, 21 feet already.
Oh, my word.
Storm surge are going to be a major issue, as well as that wind pushes the water against the southern part of the island. Kingston, Jamaica, all of those cities that are along Jamaica's southernmost side expected to get up to 8 to 12 feet of storm surge alone. So we have a really, really monster of a hurricane that is about to take over an area that many people are at least familiar with. Some had vacation there. We know. I was actually just with some people a couple weekends ago. They were all from Jamaica. So I know you're out there. Many of you live in the Atlanta metro area or somewhere in Georgia. You have friends down there, family members, and it's going to be a rough go. I can't really tell you how it's going to turn out.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary, obviously, but you just think about, we're showing you video of the preparations that are going into effect. I already see some of the gusts of wind and taking in what you said is ahead for folks there in Jamaica. This is not a good situation.
If there is one saving grace, is the speed of this storm has allowed for ample preparation. Now, how much can you prepare when you are an island nation that's far from other land masses? Not a lot of preparation there physically, but at least they had time on their side.
Of course. Okay, so talking Hurricane Melissa, now a Category 5 storm, and our meteorologist Jonathan Stacy following this very closely, and I know that we can tune in to you and to our station throughout the day for the very latest on this. So we certainly appreciate that. All right, as you're waking up this morning, you probably noticed the temperature is a little cooler outside. Yes.
A little?
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yes. So you think about, important things you might need: a jacket, scarf, gloves, and the like, especially as we get closer and closer to winter. So in just a few minutes, we'll have Caden Jackson on with us this morning talking about a drive that he's doing to try to raise some of these important items. So stick around. Welcome back, everyone. Okay, it's the time of year when the temperature drops. You need those coats, the gloves, all of that. The need is great for those really important items. So, a local initiative, it's called the Winter Warmth Drive 2025, is rallying neighbors all across the community to collect 5,000 coats, hats, scarves for families all before December 31st. So, one of the guys behind it is joining us this morning from Loved and Protected. We have their founder, Caden Jackson, joining us with more. So, Caden, welcome. Hi.
Hi.
You doing okay?
Yes.
It's good to have you here. All right, so start by telling us a little bit about yourself. How old are you? What grade are you in? And where are you from, Caden?
Well, my name is Caden Jackson. I'm 15 years old. I'm from Maryland, but I moved here when I was pretty young, so.
Nice. All right, so let's dive into this. You know, there's a lot of things that you could be doing, and it's incredibly impressive that you've taken it upon yourself to try to help neighbors and folks in need. So let's dive into what you're doing here, the heart of the effort. What is it that inspired you to do this winter coat drive?
So what it really inspired me when I was younger, I started the business when I was younger. I used to have nightmares all the time, and my mom would read me Psalms 23, and one night she asked me what it meant to me, and I said it meant that I was loved and protected. So God gave me a plan to start helping kids that are in need.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. So how did you settle on having a coat and hat and scarf drive?
So I originally started hat, scarves, and gloves because I seen the need during the winter that not everybody had hat, scarves, or gloves.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. So it's a big goal that you have. I mean, you talk about 5,000, like you're not playing around with this, are you? You mean business, and so there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Again, we mentioned that the goal for all of this is by December 31st. So how did you settle on that goal of 5,000 coats and scarves and hats?
So recently I've done lower, but this year I want to go higher because more kids are going to need hats, scarves, and gloves and coats.
Okay, and you're not doing this alone. You've got a team behind you. You brought a team.
Yes.
They're in here in the wings, cheering you on and supporting you. But this is something that you're doing in collaboration with Millie, who's the owner of Full Circle Salon and Spa Suites, and Full Circle Candles as well. So I think that might be who we're seeing on the screen there with you. So tell me how this came to be and how you two are working together to make this happen.
So we're working together that everybody who donates will get a free manifestation candle, and that's what we're doing together. That's how we partnered.
Yeah, tell me about this candle, this manifestation candle.
So I don't really know much about it, but it tells, like, I'm pretty sure, like, when I smelled it, it's very calm. It makes you feel calm. That's how I felt when I smelled it, and it makes you feel calm about yourself, and it tells you a scripture too.
That's amazing. That really is. So how did you and Millie get hooked up, and how did you guys decide to work together to make this goal happen?
So I think, well, I used to go there when I was younger for haircuts, but I think that we got together because my mom and her, you know, and she seen that what I was doing was good, and we kind of just partnered together from that.
That's so cool. So, I mean, how does that make you feel to know that you have a woman who's a business owner and she's getting behind you and wants to be a part of this with you? How does that make you feel to know that she believes in you enough to sign on to this project with you?